Cloning cannabis does not have to be complicated. Stick to these basics and you'll get better results every single time. But first, check this out. AC Infinity has the all-in-one best out there cloning kit. The heat mat, the dome, and not just a dome that extends. So if you grow those babies for a while in there, timer for the LED lights that snug right into the top of the dome. This has everything you need to get cloning right out the door. So go on over to AC Infinity's Amazon store and use coupon code DUDEGROWS10 for 10% off any of their gear and start off cloning right with the best kit you can get. All
Yes.
right, Scotty, what's up? Let's do this. Let's help people get roots.
Come on, let's do it. Cloning does not have to be difficult. I will shout out to AC Infinity. If you get one of those kits, you've got all the fundamentals there. We can take you the rest of the way. Come on, let's do it.
Number one, and some of these, this is not the 100% through, but these are more some of the tips that some people might not think of. Having the healthiest, most hydrated donor plant possible. And I call it a donor plant because when I say mother plant, you don't have to keep a mother plant. A donor plant can be any plant in veg, but they got to be healthy and they got to
Yep.
be hydrated, right?
Absolutely, man. When you say healthy, first of all, man, you ever hear like, oh, clone from clone from clone, you should never do that. That's only if a plant has a disease. Because when you clone from clone from clone, if you're cloning from an unhealthy plant, you're just keeping that disease going. You're just spreading that disease. So that's the first thing is a healthy mother.
And that, keep in mind, when I say hydrated, that means your plant is also nutritionally up to par. You don't have deficiencies because when you take this cut, its roots are gone. It doesn't have any way to get nutrients for a minute. And let's talk about timing for taking the cuts. I don't like taking clones at the end of a vegetative life cycle. This is when your plants are starting to go to sleep. They're starting to change what their mood is. Take your clones or cuttings when they're more vigorous, the middle of the day, more towards the beginning of the day. So when you're putting them in their tray, they're good to go. Just as a little side tip there.
Yeah, I got a tip we'll start right off with, which is hydration. Man, you never want to clone a plant that is thirsty. You always want to have that thing watered before you clone it. Man, a lot of times you'll even spray it with foliar spray it. But the idea is, what does it use? The plant uses osmotic pressure to suck up the water and nutrients from the soil and then out the leaves. So man, if you have a dehydrated plant, it is going to use that as osmotic pressure and it's going to suck up an air bubble, and your clone will never root.
Yes, make sure your capillary action is satisfied. Satisfy its thirst. One way I
Yeah.
do that is when I'm going in to take my cuts, I'm going to go take my branches off of my donor plants. That's not my final cut. I'm going to take those branches, let's say, and cut a few inches below and stick all those and let them soak in my cloning solution, like this Clonex solution here, before I make my final cut. And what this is doing, yeah, see, there's a nice list of NPK, macro, micronutrients there at a very light dose to make sure that that cloning, and when you take it, it's going to be full of nutrition and not freak out because it, again, has no roots to get any.
Yeah, and it still needs nutrition, still needs nutrients to make those roots. You still need nitrogen in there, and uh, yeah, you definitely want to clone a healthy plant, that's for sure.
Let's talk about making the cut, Scotty, making the right cut, because there's some tips here. Where to do it, the tool to do it, degrees, bring me into it.
But all these are best practices. Man, cannabis wants to live. You can go in there and probably violate most of these rules and still have some success. But let's talk to you about how to
Some.
do it to have the most success, right? And when you make that cut for, you're going to get roots off of that cut. And so you want to give it as big of a surface area as possible. So they usually cut it at a nice 45-degree angle.
Hey, show this picture, Grammo. We can show right where you want to cut at the node, right there. That's where you want to make your cut, your final cut, and make it at that 45-degree angle. And also give it a little scrape. If you have some sharp scissors or you're using, which hopefully if you're using scissors, they are sharp, they are clean. You can use scissors. You don't
Yes.
have to use a razor blade. A razor blade's fine as well. Do a little scrape as well there, maybe a quarter inch or less, and that's where you're exposing more area for roots to come out after rooting hormone comes in touch with that surface of the stem.
Yeah, they got where that cambrium layer is right under the outside, right under the skin. And so you just want to peel that down a little bit, and that's where the roots are going to pop out of.
One other thing you can do, don't have to do, but ideally, if you're putting your cloning in a tray, like a dome we showed before, and you're going to put 10 plus, 10, 20, 15 cuts in there, it can get crowded. I like to trim back if my clones have bigger fan leaves on them, trim those back. It also reduces the leaf surface area where you
Mm,
can reduce transpiration because you don't need transpiration. And it keeps just a neater, cleaner, better airflow environment in the clone dome instead of leaves overlapping leaves. You can trim
yep.
those bigger leaves back by up to 50%.
Yes, that's a big deal because if you have leaves laying on leaves, I mean, don't forget that's a propagation chamber. Propagate all sorts of bacteria and fungi in there, all sorts of pathogens that you don't want.
All right, this next one is one I see a lot of people overseeing. Prep your rooting environment. This means set up your cut kit. You want to soak your rooters, whatever you're using in your cloning solution, like half a day before. Put all that on the heat mat. Get everything warm and cozy. I mean, it's just having the least amount of stress. Again, all these are tips that add up to lower stress for these.
Now you're talking best practices, what you're actually supposed to do, right? Like if you follow instruction. No, you are. But I have gotten away with just taking my cubes. I use those rapid rooter cubes and soaking them. I like the Clonex brand of stuff. I'll use the Clonex solution and the Clonex gel. And I'll soak my cubes in there. I don't find I have to do it for more than 10 or 15 minutes. You probably are all right. Doing it for a few hours is best practices.
My water off the tap of my well is really cold. I get cold thinking about putting a fresh
Mm,
baby clone into a cold ass rapid rooter.
you're so
Sure, like
right.
you said, this is a very vigorous plant, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're 100% right on that.
One other quick tip. You said Clonex solution. That's a gel. They have packs that they can use. I'm also a fan on a budget. The rooting powder, it's super. It lasts forever. It's $5. It's the same concept as a rooting hormone, but some people like the gel because they claim it's going to help seal the bottom of the stem a little bit more with that jelly consistency.
Yeah. Of course it is, man. That's the whole idea behind the gel. Is the rooting hormone isn't there's nothing super sexy about that. You know, it's pretty inexpensive.
I agree.
Yeah, but getting the gel so it seals. The whole point is it seals that bottom. So when it wants to suck up an air bubble, it doesn't. It's got that barrier to it. So that's the only reason I really dig the gels.
Sexy gel. Scotty's into it. All right.
Yeah.
Give us your last tip here, man. Make it a no vacancy zone for bad things like stem rot and just different bad microbes that can affect the cloning dome because the environment in there is very humid and warm.
Yeah, it's a propagation dome. So we all know if you leave cubes in there too long or you leave too much water in there, you get all sorts of bacteria and fungi. Y'all know about dampening off, which is when your your seedling comes up and it's just a little too moist and the stem, gets rotted. Same thing can happen with clones. So yeah, soon nature fills a vacuum. Somebody told me that one time, and it makes so much sense. You soak those cubes in some nutrient, they're not gonna stay sterile. Some bacteria, some fungi are gonna come in there and colonize. So if you load it up with beneficial bacteria and fungi before you even start, there's just a no vacancy sign for pathogens. So all you have is nutrient solubilizing and complementary bacteria. That's what we want.
Right on, right on. Give us your best tips on cloning and don't be afraid. Like we said, this plant loves to grow. It's not that hard to clone. Just have to have your best practices down and you're good to go. Give us some comments below. Let us know your favorite ways to clone.
Yes! And if you like this video, hit the like button, man. Smash the subscribe button. Share this one with another grower you know. And check out the other couple videos YouTube is recommending.